SurfAid works with people in remote areas to implement community-led, holistic development programs, empowering locals to meet their own needs in a sustainable way. SurfAid's approach means that our programs are tailored to the specific needs of each community. In some villages, our projects focus on nutrition, food security and agriculture. In other areas, on mother and child health. While some of our other projects focus on improving access to clean water. All of this is in pursuit of our mission to help improve the health, well-being and self-reliance of people in remote communities connected to us through surfing. And we couldn't do it without your support. So thank you.
Jodi Cornish, good morning. How are you?
Good. Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeremy. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome to the Impact Leaders webinar. It's an honour to have you here. This is a series where we feature some of the most extraordinary impact leaders working in the sector to uncover, demystify, explore the nature of their work, the passion, the commitment, the expertise. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's wonderful to record such things.
Well,
yeah.
I think it might be helpful to explain to listeners, all of our NGO partners pass through a fairly rigorous due diligence process. We've just reached $9 million and counting.
I saw that. Congratulations, iChange. It's incredible.
Thank you. Well, it's very much a team effort and very much being powered by our business partners, which is amazing how much goodwill and desire and focus now there is for businesses realizing that they must give back, they must clearly communicate their commitment to people and planet. So speaking of people and planet, please share with us, what does SurfAid do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Jeremy. So as you saw in that video, our SurfAid's mission is to improve the health, well-being and resilience of remote communities connected to us through surfing. So for over 20 years now, we've been working in remote Indonesia, delivering health programs to improve the health of those communities. And we work alongside the communities and in the communities. And we work in existing systems and institutions. So we work with the Posyandos, which are the local health clinics, and with the cadres, who are the local clinic staff. And as the video explained, we do pre and postnatal care, water and sanitation programs. Currently, our program in East Indonesia, in Sumba, our nutrition sensitive agriculture program, it works with families to increase their knowledge of nutrition, to introduce new ways of cooking. We work with farmers to increase their crop yields, produce better quality crops. And we work with the locally owned, community-owned business enterprises called BUMDES around agribusiness and improving those. And all of those aspects and components of our program are working towards reducing the stunting of children under 5, which is an Indonesian government development goal. In rural Indonesia, stunting rates are lower in the rural areas than they are in than in the urban areas, and obviously that does impact greatly on a person's potential. So what we've seen is our holistic approach in and with the community, we call that an accompaniment approach, has seen positive impacts. And one of the things is we've now been asked to replicate that in other places. So this year we're expanding the program to Rote, and we'll also be considering taking that program to other places in Sumba. So in 2019, we expanded to the Solomon Islands as well. So the surfing community is larger than just Indonesia. And also as part of the Pacific as our neighbours, the board decided we would extend our reach, and we had the resources. And so now we operate in the Solomon Islands also, And in the Solomon Islands, we work in partnership. We work with the Solomon Islands Planned Parenthood Association and with the Anglican Church of Melanesia at present. And again, those programs are entirely focused on women's health. So from what started as quite a small NGO, we've now built into an international NGO with affiliates in Australia, New Zealand, and the USA, and all of those communities helping thousands of remote communities.
Thank you for sharing that. It's I was in Papua New Guinea myself not long ago, and it's extraordinary how undeveloped many of these communities are. Some of our nearest neighbours, well, in the case of PNG, our nearest neighbour, and I've been to the Solomons as well, and know that there's a lot of challenges there. It is a world away from Australia, isn't it? And perhaps if we could just step back, because I understand there is a wonderful and passionate connection, obviously, between the founders, who I believe are surfers. Could you sort of share that story about how it all came to be?
Yes, absolutely. So, what is unique about SurfAid is definitely the mission. We just talked about it. We improve the health and wellbeing and resilience, but in remote communities connected to us through surfing. And, there's no other missions I know that say that. And we were founded by Dr. Dave Jenkins, a New Zealander, over 20 years ago, was surfing on a charter boat off the islands of the Mentawais in Indonesia. He went into a community, and what he saw there was significant health issues that were incredibly preventative, from malaria and diarrhea to other things, and things that he felt could and should be improved. And for him, that changed his life. He went back to New Zealand, founded SurfAid with his friends, and 20 years later, we're now an accredited international development agency. So we have a huge community, a dedicated community of surfers that are supporters, donors, and supporters in other ways. And I think for them, it's a really wonderful way to give back to places that have given them so much.
What inspired you to want to work for SurfAid?
So I had been living and working in the Solomon Islands for 6 years, and in 2019 came back to Australia and was working here for a couple of years part-time in development, but this opportunity for a Solomon Islands program manager came up with SurfAid, and I thought, oh, that looks great. I really am interested to work back in the Pacific. And when I researched SurfAid, I was so impressed by the way in which they work in Indonesia, based in and working alongside villages. It really appealed to me, the size of the organisation, the depth of their reach, their mission. It was all, it really appealed to me. And I think because the Indonesian team are all Indonesian, I really appreciate that they're meeting their own broader community's needs. That really appealed to me too. And now I've moved into the head of programs and operations job, and I plan to be here for a while. It's a wonderful, it's a great organisation. I'm privileged to be in this position.
Thanks, Jodi. And I think you touch on such a critical, you do touch on what is a critical component of best practice development, which is unlocking capacity or capacity building amongst the local community, which is a dramatic shift from the earlier versions of aid, which was largely tended towards foreigners, often white people, going into communities and kind of making declarations around what they needed, with best intentions. Could you perhaps, I think that's such an important, not only passionate commitment from a methodological perspective as an organisation, but perhaps share in more detail some examples of how you work alongside community, in partnership with community, where there is a clear understanding of sort of the colonial overlay that has informed a lot of international development traditionally, and how now the development sector, and in your case, are instead working very sensitively with communities to empower them working alongside them, unlocking capacity for them, rather than a top-down approach, which traditionally is how international development tended to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, you've touched on so much there, Jeremy. There has been significant change in the development, trends and or the way in which government partners work. Governments want us to work as NGOs, and also more broadly in society, what countries we work with and how they are wanting their development partners to work with them as well. I think SurfAid's a little bit unique in that our programs began in Indonesia, and they were run whilst we had a couple of founders. We were running these with Indonesian people and locals, and I think that's been one of the ways in which we've consistently been able to ensure capacity and sustainability within our programs. So we, apart from having entirely Indonesian staff, we also hire from the local areas in which we work. So we may not be able to get specialists in those locations, but we certainly can find the community development workers and people that live and work to change those behaviours, the people that understand the context. That's been really important for us. I think in the Solomon Islands, working in partnership, once an organisation like this has, you were talking about due diligence of iChange and your partners. Similarly, we need to do our due diligence with our partners, and once we've completed that, if we're able to, if they're a reputable and our values align, our systems align, then we need to be able to support them to meet the needs they're identifying. And so from the way in which we work with partners there is for them to be identifying what their needs are and what their supports, what supports they require, and then us being able to assist them with those. So I think, yeah, I mean, capacity development is critical to sustainability of any program. And obviously it's not always right. We don't get it right all the time. Nobody does. But essentially, I think the model in which we operate in both locations that we currently work in is supporting capacity development as well as it can be.
It's such an interesting point. And can you just sort of highlight top level the vast inequalities? What your, like, for example, your work in Sumba, the work you're doing and how challenging it is for those communities. And as I understand, Sumba is close to Bali, obviously one of the wealthiest countries because of all tourism, but Sumba is, an hour's flight away, I believe, and very remote. And just how stark that difference can be in terms of health outcomes. Could you address that a little further?
Absolutely. So, yeah, whilst it is, Indonesia does attract tourism, Bali particularly, but yeah, you do get to the remote communities and you can see that there isn't equal access to water and sanitation. They are lacking in health facilities and services in these areas. The impacts of climate change, either the weather, for instance, on coastal communities is also considerable. And so the health indicators, all of the indicators, in fact, in these areas are vastly different to the rest of Indonesia. And you're looking at a country that, has areas where people are doing very well, and the areas in which we work, that's just not the case. Children are malnourished, families are having food security issues and facing those. So that's a real concern, and absolutely an equity issue, and that's the reason that we do what we do in those areas, because wanting to ensure that everybody can have equal access, and if you're able to be healthy, your potential and life in life and to participate in community is significantly increased, and we know that. So operationally, the areas in where we work, they're incredibly difficult. Transport can be an issue for our staff, travel, there's limited accommodation, limited food. Often our staff are staying away from their families. There's a whole range of operational issues that make the work incredibly challenging in these remote locations. Obviously, as a organisation, we need to ensure that we have a really clear work health and safety policies and safeguarding policies in place for community, for staff, and for everyone in those situations.
Can you share what the average salary is for people in these communities?
That's a very specific question that I don't know off the top of my head, Jeremy, but it would be relative to us incredibly small. Obviously, not everybody's in the formal workforce. So a large number of the people the communities where we work aren't employed at all. So they are growing crops and selling those additional crops at the market, or engaging in other forms of the informal economy.
What I love about your work, I think it speaks to a deeper responsibility as travellers to the developing world, where often we go on holidays and we're largely immune to the lived reality of communities from that place. And it sounds like your initial founder was very moved by his experiences of, happening to bump into an island and go surfing, and then took the time to really sit with the people and listen to them and gain an understanding of their world and their reality and their challenges. And I think it speaks to something very important and even increasingly desired by people when they travel. You don't tend to remember sitting around a pool. I know personally the times I've gone into the communities, and which is most of the travel I do now, which is going to visit the work. It is the most life-changing experience often, and galvanizes us to want to make a difference. And I think the more of us who, when the privileged amongst us who get to travel, to actually take the time to gently introduce ourselves where appropriate, and to meet communities and to hear their stories and gather an understanding of how people live, is not only important in breaking down barriers, but in actually, as in the case of SurfAid, that's obviously created a whole organization around your passion to support those people, which happened as a result of what sounded like a holiday, a surfing trip, which is wonderful to see. How's the economic climate currently in Australia and even globally impacting the work of SurfAid? I understand philanthropic support is a key pillar.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to learn more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're incredibly fortunate to have, a very dedicated group of individual donors and also long-term foundational support, as well as Australian government and New Zealand government support, which we're incredibly thankful for. But regardless, as you mentioned, the global economic crisis is impacting the dollars available to, and it's actually a competitive industry for charities. We're all wanting to access the same dollars. So, I mean, we're seeking obviously to maintain our supporter community who are essential to our work, and a really important part of our work is keeping them in touch and connected to our work. And we're also looking to diversify. So it's platforms like I=Change, which open us up to new audiences and businesses and new ways of fundraising. An incredibly innovative opportunity for us to fundraise that we need to continue to identify. It's fantastic to be part of this.
And personally, what are some of the unique challenges and joys of your work?
The joys, there's many joys. I mean, I'm so incredibly fortunate and privileged to be in this job. I mean, if you're in the field and you see a child weigh in at a healthy weight for the first time, that's incredible. Their life will change. Similarly, just having a woman seek treatment for cervical screening in the Solomon Islands and seek the screening and receive the treatment, you know that could have potentially saved a life too. So, I mean, the joys are countless. Every day there is something to be thankful for in this position and within the organisation, that we're able to help others. There's many challenges as well. I think you've highlighted lots and lots of them. I think the balancing of programs with the fundraising and ensuring that we're doing no harm. It's a significant, and a major part of our ethos, our principles. We don't wish to do any harm, but we know that organisations can, and so we work really hard to ensure we're not. I think the operational challenges are enormous, and then from a more strategic perspective, changes across government changes. We've seen them recently across the Pacific and in areas where we work, where that does impact how and what you do. So there's a lot of challenges, but absolutely they're worth managing and putting the planning in place to address those.
And where does your passion for this work comes from? Was it a moment that changed your life? Was it a series of moments? What happened?
Well, I think it definitely was a moment. I think because I remember backpacking through Thailand when I was at university, and with a friend, and we got to Chiang Mai, and I met an Australian volunteer woman, and she was working with street women, vulnerable street women, and I was able to talk to those women and understand the impact that this program had on their lives. And you were just talking about moments you have when you're traveling, and that was absolutely one for me. And I came home, and after 2 years of teaching, I quit my job and I went to volunteer in the Solomon Islands on a tiny island volcano. And that changed. I fell in love with the Pacific, and it changed the rest of my life. So I've been working there in development on and off since. And I absolutely think that when you're exposed to the inequality in the world for long periods, and it's through travel, as you've talked about, you have an opportunity to do that. But it's when you have seen the change that can occur that you think, okay, well, I really want to be a part of that. I want to be working towards that.
Thanks for sharing that. It's the common theme in these webinars is how passionate people are, and how it is often a moment or a series of moments which have galvanized that person to realize that they actually have no choice, that this is now their path. And they say that the two best days are the day you were born, because that's probably important.
Well, that's a good day.
That's a good day.
That's a very good day.
And the second is the day you worked out why. That's another good day.
Yeah.
Jodi,
and every day where you've got the opportunity to do the why is also incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, that is absolutely true. So businesses are giving back $1 from every sale and supporting the work of SurfAid. What impact can this funding have for organisations and the people you serve? Often, I mean, we've raised $9 million now. It's a lot of money, but even a few $1,000s, like what can a relatively small amount of money have, especially in the developing world and especially in the work that you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, it's just a $1 can have a huge impact. So, I mean, incredibly, because we are an accredited agency with the Australian government's ANCP program, every $1 that we receive from a funder, we can leverage their money to $4 from the Australian government. So, in essence, that's a huge opportunity. But in relation to just those dollars, I mean, $5 can provide supplementary food for under a malnourished child for 1 week. $10 can provide a person with accessible clean water. So when we're talking about dollars, $1 makes a big difference. It's absolutely significant change. Every dollar counts.
And how can I-Could-Change businesses help?
Well, I mean, just think, these businesses, it's so fantastic, the opportunities for them and for us. I=Change is an absolute triple win. That's how we see it. The business is able to, as you say, give back and really, they're all seeking. Most businesses are seeking to do do good with their social responsibility and the changes towards that. So they're able to do that. Consumers themselves at the end of a transaction are able to feel good because they've done something they've also learned. And then as the charity, we've benefited. So, at the moment, Breathe Bell Tents, Mambo Surf Deluxe, and more the label are actually increasing our audience and sharing our story of what we're trying to do, and that's an incredible opportunity for us. So those businesses are essential, but the platform itself is making that happen. So for us, it's a really fantastic opportunity, and we're, as we say, think it's a win-win.
Thanks, Jodi. So for anyone listening who owns a business or works for a business, it's not only retail. We can now integrate with professional services to help businesses give back when they're invoicing, when they're engaging their clients at different times throughout the year, and bring to life their commitment to giving to people with 100% transparency. So many businesses often have a philanthropic budget. They might write a check at the end of the year, but there's really no value in that except for the NGO, which of course is fantastic. But how can you now engage your team, your staff, your clients, your customers to bring that story to life in a really powerful way? And of course, we're almost in countdown mode now for Christmas, ostensibly the season of giving. And we actually have a way in which instead of businesses buying gifts, they can now make a donation. So that's a wonderful way to, instead of kind of contributing to the problem of oversupply and sending gifts that people either really, don't need or get thrown away or generally end up as landfill, what a wonderful way instead to make a donation. So come on board, join us, give back to SurfAid. They're an incredible NGO working amongst our nearest neighbours with a focus on empowering women and children and doing extraordinary work. Jodi, what keeps you going? What do you most look forward to each day?
Keeps me going, definitely, as I was talking about, it's the big moments for sure. We can do a post-program evaluation and find out that the community still, the malnutrition rates are still declining, that those post-program results years later, they're absolutely reasons to celebrate and keep going. And that is essentially why we do our work. But day to day, like I can just love I love working with my team. We're all dedicated to the same thing. We all want the same thing, and we're all trying very hard to get there. It's a privilege and opportunity to be in that situation where your colleagues are, the shared goals are very much entrenched in each and every one of us. So yeah, absolutely. Can be a great team meeting or finishing a report can get me through, because ultimately I know that all of those tiny things make a difference, and that's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
And in many years from now, when you look back on your life, what do you believe you'll be most proud of?
Oh, well, I would definitely say my daughter, because I think raising caring people is really important, and so far that she is. But I guess from a career perspective, maybe definitely just I'll be proud that I've worked towards, equality for people where I can, and yeah, I'll be proud of that. But equally, I acknowledge the privilege I have to do that every day. I'm incredibly privileged to do that, and I don't take it for granted.
Thanks, Jodi. We have a question that's come in from one of our listeners. Are there any upcoming campaigns individuals can get involved in?
So yes, we do. Our biggest campaign every year is Make a Wave. That's in September. It's our flagship. It's a peer-to-peer campaign. That's where you surf every day. But we have an end-of-year campaign as well, where we'll be raising funds for the project I outlined in Sumba. And that'll be across digital media, and you'll be able to find out information about that on our website. And we also have SurfAid Cups, which are our community fundraisers, and the next one of those is Urban Surf in Melbourne next year. So all the details for that will be on our website as well. So I encourage you to get across that. We also have a film opportunity that's donating to SurfAid at present. And again, the information is on our website, and I can't tell you where it's on next, but fascinating, amazing, wonderful film. So please have a look at our website, and it'll connect you to that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. No, it's very inspiring as individuals to get involved directly, and we always encourage that. Organisations like SurfAid, as you just heard, are running campaigns throughout the year to accelerate their impact. Jodi, just before you leave us, is there a story that stands out in SurfAid's work? Perhaps a woman you met, a family you helped? Is there a final story you'd like to share with us?
This isn't necessarily about one single person, but one that comes straight to mind that we've talked about a lot recently is the introduction of snails to the diet of the communities in Sumba. So when the community were looking at increasing their proteins, there wasn't consideration of suddenly starting to, cook the snails, but we got support and advice, and through a process which the community were instrumental in, what we've seen now is snails included in the diet and significantly increased protein intakes. So what we've done is satay cooking of the snail classes. We've done, and it's these small things that, once internalized within community, practiced long term, change the nature of the issue that we're addressing. And so for me, that was a great solution to what was a significant problem. One solution to what was a significant problem. But I mean, there was another. I could tell you about a young woman in Sumba who works for the BUMDES, which is a locally owned enterprise. She's on the governance structure, and she was quiet, and she was elected as the treasurer, but was not really participating or enabled to participate in that committee. And through the close work, so we have community development workers in that community working with her to increase her understanding of her role, just increase her confidence in speaking and her understanding of finance. So she received really intensive support and training. And now that young woman speaks up at meetings and has really asserted her position on the committee and is now involving herself in community decisions. And we know that empowering women to participate more effectively can create great change. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, that was a beautiful story. And I actually met her, I met her in the field when I visited, and you can see the change that this program has provided. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of stories. I don't want to retell them incorrectly, but those sorts of things really do make an impact on me. And, it's wonderful to be able to see them.
Snails in Sumba. I wouldn't have imagined that.
Local
it sounds
cuisine.
Like, a success story of working with unexpected resources to provide
That's right.
protein. And of course, we know that the empowerment of women in communities is critical to lifting up the entire community and ultimately the entire country. So, and I know that's a big focus of your work. Jodi Cornish, Head of Programs and Operations at SurfAid, thank you so much for joining us at our Impact Leaders webinar series.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jeremy, and big thanks to your team at iChange for what you do. As we said, makes a big difference. $9 million is incredible, so congratulations on reaching it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.